So here you can see that natural capital Germany is based on the results of the international TEEB study and its call for national assessments and applying the TEEB approach. End of 2010, the German Ministry for the Environment decided to start a German TEEB study, which actually has more the character of a process and is much more than a single study, as I will show you later on in my presentation. The Federal Agency for Nature Conservation, on behalf of the Environmental Ministry, is coordinating those TEEB relevant projects. And it started this year, and it will at least last until 2014, which coincides with the EU assessment of ecosystems and services by the European Union, by the member states, as you already mentioned. So what are the objectives? According to the TEEB approach, the purpose of TEEB-DE is to recognize and to demonstrate economic values of ecosystems and biodiversity in Germany, and to highlight the context between economical, ethical, and ecological rationale, and to find approaches to integrate the value of ecosystem services and biodiversity in private and public decision-making in Germany. The benefit from our point of view as a Federal Agency for Nature Conservation is, on the one hand, to increase acceptance for biodiversity policy due to economic reasons, additional to ethical reasoning, and on the other hand, to initiate a discussion on improving biodiversity policy instruments. So there are some more objectives I would like to share with you. We are trying to generate new knowledge by merging and analyzing German case studies and research projects, and by setting up a national assessment of ecosystem services. This is the so-called overview study, and I'm going to explain it later on to you. This will hopefully contribute to enhance and to further develop methodologies for ecosystem assessments as well. Like in TEEB International, communication and participation is very central to reach the targets that are set. The TEEB-DE process evolves through participation of experts and stakeholders right from the beginning, and findings will be presented in different reports. And I will show you the structure of the reports later on as well. Our slogan behind this whole approach is think big, as we strategically have in mind to improve environmental and economics accounting and assessment in Germany and to mainstream the findings. Now I would like to present to you what the planning and program of TEEB-DE looks like. Natural Capital Germany consists of a few core projects, which I'm going to explain to you. Additionally to that core projects, there will be several satellite projects. These are ecosystem or problem-specific, TEEB-relevant research projects or events like workshops that will thematically contribute to some part of the reports. Since time for this presentation is rather short, I would like to comment only on the core projects now. So we're starting with the initial report, which will be published next year, and it's kind of a brochure with only 30 or 40 pages, which with simple explanations which should be understandable not only for the stakeholders but also for the general public. It will contain an introduction in Natural Capital Germany. There will be information about the complexity and trade-offs between ecosystem services in Germany. The brochure will highlight the political meaning of TEEB activities and its socio-economic importance, and it will demonstrate benefits related to ecosystem services, especially by illustrating good practice examples. In the outlook of the initial report, some instruments will be mentioned that could integrate ecosystem service values, such as environmental reporting, land use planning, and management. Now I'm going to the other core project, the National Ecosystem Services Assessment, or the so-called overview study, which already started. The research group contracted will classify the most relevant ecosystem services in Germany according to the MA and the TEEB classification. They assess data availability, and basically they will do a physical assessment only where economic values are already available. For example, the value of reducing greenhouse gas emissions, those will be considered then. So they will develop an approach for German-wide monitoring of ecosystem service based on physical indicators. This is the first approach and it won't be done in a year, so therefore it is likely to be continued by further projects, research projects. And another important point to mention here is the need to harmonize assessment activities as far as possible in accordance with EU activities as coordinated by the Commission, the JRC, the EEA, and possibly also by ENCA, the European Nature Conservation Agencies. On this chart, you see the structure of the core project, which is called Natural Capital Germany, Coordination, Communication, and Reports. And I would like to explain the structure in a bit more detail to you. So here on top, you see the Environment Ministry and the federal agency that oversee the activities. In the center, we find the study leader and the research group that is in charge of the project. In person, these are Professor Hans Jürgens and his team from the Helmholtz Center for Environmental Research, the UFZ, who also played a central role in the international TEEB process. Together, they constitute the coordination group, and on the left-hand side, you find the project advisory group, which consists of representatives of the German states, several different ministries, the stakeholders, NGOs, as well as different research disciplines. So this will be a quite large group, I guess. It hasn't been established yet. So on the right-hand side, you see the advisory committee, a smaller group, which does not only give advice, but also it will represent and support the launching of the reports. Now we're going to the reports. Additional to the initial report, which I just explained to you, there will be 4 reports. The first one will probably deal with climate change adaptations. The second one will deal with green infrastructure in rural areas. The third one is supposed to deal with green infrastructure in urban areas, and there will be a 4th report, which is kind of a synthesis report with political recommendations and a focus on instruments. Everything is just a draft version. It hasn't started yet, so probably there might be some changes coming up. On the base, you see there will be, oh no, sorry, I forgot. There will be a peer review and author groups for writing those reports, and hopefully there will be a lot of input which has to be filtered and channeled into the different products and the reports. So you see this on the base of this chart with workshops, call for evidences, our BfN projects, expert networks, and so on. So finally, my last chart. I won't go into too much detail about that because I think we'll have time to discuss it later on. Some challenges and approaches, how we try to counteract those. So I just picked the first point. It's on the one hand, we have this overwhelming complexity of ecosystems, functions, and services, and on the other hand, we have data scarcity. So therefore, we need to concentrate our capacities on something, and we decide to focus on the main biodiversity threats in Germany. Then we have to deal with the trade-offs within ecosystem services. We already heard about this problem, and we think it's a good way to focus on win-win cases where synergies between ecosystem services, maintenance, and biodiversity will be very transparent. There are methodological deficiencies, and there has to be further research done and also funded, I might say. And we have this task of separate national TEEB activities and the European assessment. And there is a need for international exchange and networking, and you already mentioned the workshop on film next week, which will contribute to that. So certainly this list of challenges and approaches is not complete at all. It just gives a glance at what we will be dealing with the next years, and we are looking forward to facing it together with you. You are very welcome to support TEEB in order to improve the output it will generate. So thanks for your attention.